Admittedly, this is a speech that I hoped I would not have had to make, although I will confess that I expected that I would have to make it when I observed the trajectory of the government in recent times, its attitude towards the law and to legislation, of course, and its attitude towards the people. As did the learned Attorney General, my major focus will be on the bill that deals with phone tapping, and I agree with him that wiretapping may be misleading, since he may confess now, and he has confessed to the people of Barbados, that they are less interested in old methods and are now more interested in the modern methods of breaching people's right to privacy, which is, as he said, protected by the Constitution. But the learned Attorney General also says to us that today this bill, which intends to be an act, will be an exception to the Constitution pursuant to Section 49, and that not even the Constitution will stop this government from invading against the rights of the citizens to privacy. As always, I like to write notes while listening and preparing the legislation. And the learned Attorney General described what he does today as a bold step. And he says that the legislation now trespasses on an area, I'm reading, sir, my notes, that is, on an area that is sacred and murky. Perhaps it is the first time I've heard those two words put together in a sentence. I don't know how it is sacred and also murky. But if he were to ask the citizens of Barbados to choose one of those words, they would say back to him that it is murky. What the government is doing takes this country into somewhat murky waters. Making my notes further, and this is how I like to begin, by taking note of what was said in the opening speech. The learned Attorney General said that we have accused the government of being soft on crime. And his proof, the honorable member's proof, that the government has not been soft on crime is that the government has passed a large quantity of legislation. Now, the learned Attorney General will be reminded that when we accuse the government of being soft on crime, we are speaking of qualities and not quantities. It is quite possible to pass lots of legislation, but the nature and the depth of that legislation must reveal an intention to arrest criminality. And I don't think the public is yet convinced that the government is serious about any effort to curb crime and to curb violent crime in this country. We normally hear the speeches about the appointment of many judges and making the Department of the Director of Public Prosecutions a lot larger. These days, I don't hear too often the boast about the new Bail Act. That new Bail Act, and I speak about this often, and I'm going to speak about it again today. That new Bail Act was supposed to change a situation in which young men on bail for murder are committing murders while on bail. Now, the honorable member for St. Joseph did not produce any statistics, but Since that act has been passed, there have been more murders per month and per capita in Barbados. So that when we accuse the government of being soft on crime, we speak to qualities. And then one considers that the murders have continued, and not only continued, but that they have increased. It must be considered that the passage of the New Bail Act has been a failure if its intent was to incarcerate men who had been charged for one murder and to keep them incarcerated. But the situation continues in Barbados where men, according to the evidence, are committing murders, and then it is discovered that they are on bail for murder. If that is not evidence of failure, I don't know what is. But the learned Attorney General comes today and he says that this new legislation, the Interception of Communications Bill, is an arsenal. That's how he describes it, as an arsenal. Now, an arsenal is a place where you keep weapons. And so the language is appropriate because we are going to take the position today that this legislation is a weapon against the people of Barbados. And that is in keeping with government's trajectory, and that is in keeping with government's relationship to the majority of people in this country, that the government has been unfair to the people of Barbados. The government has been treating the majority, who are honest and upright people, and those persons in Barbados now feel under threat. They certainly felt under threat when the government attempted to pass the cybercrime bill. Every day you're hearing people speak of the threat that they feel from government with this tint legislation, and it is not taken lightly. People leave home every morning now wondering if the police officer will stop them, what will be the consequence of being stopped, if they can take the time to go to the technician, so that it is not only money, but it is time, and it is time lost, and it is about productivity, and it is about bringing ruin to your entire day simply because government has somehow, by some perverse logic, associated dark tint on windows with violent crime. They haven't proved yet by any evidence how the government argues that there is a relationship between tint on a car window and violent crime. So that the point is that we agree with the Attorney General that government has an arsenal, not of tools. If it were tools, it would not be an arsenal. An arsenal contains weapons, and the people of Barbados feel that every piece of legislation now, and almost every policy, represents a weapon against the rights and interests of people in Barbados. I've referred to tint. There's the cybercrime bill, which government may be feeling embarrassed, has chosen to hide away for the time being. But that cybercrime bill, people felt that it was a threat to their rights. One of the least among them had said at the time of the bill that it was there to protect ministers. And I don't know if that is the reason government has hidden away the legislation. But you see, there's a trend, there's a trajectory. These pieces of legislation reveal government's propensity to go against the people of Barbados rather than going against the criminal element. So that today is just another one of those weapons being used against the people of Barbados. Now, we all know about the literary character Don Quixote. He used to tilt at windmills. He would see a windmill, and in his imagination, that windmill was a giant, large giant. And he would tell himself, look, I am going to beat that giant. But it was just a windmill. Now, I make that analogy with the Attorney General speaking in relation to the police service. And somehow he manages to reason that there are those in the opposition, certainly, according to him, and others, who want to hobble the police force, the police service, beg your pardon. And that is the tilt, I beg your pardon, not tint. That is the tilt at windmills. That is an argument invented conveniently. Nobody in Barbados wants to hobble the police service. In fact, I correct myself, if there's anybody in Barbados that wants to hobble the police service, it is the government. The government has not been kind to the police service. The government has not been fair to the police service. And indeed, the government has been interfering. And we've said this often. The government has been interfering in the work and the operations of the police service. And we say that based on the evidence. Whether some Good Fridays become Bad Fridays or not, the evidence is there that this government has undermined, hobbled, to use the word of the learned Attorney General, the police service. And when we hear self-congratulation, and I know this is a debate that stretches across all four pieces of legislation today, when we hear self-congratulation about inducting special constables into the police service, I confess that one of the expectations I had today was that I was coming here to hear government applaud itself in relation to the senior constables, men who have served for 20, 30, and 40 years and are still constables, men who received the promise since March last year from this compassionate government that a man who served 20 or 30 or 40 years, and 20 at least, in the service, in the police service, without promotion, that he would have been promoted, and that promotion and consequent increase in salary would have taken place since last year, March 2024. This is August 2025. And it has not happened, so that if anyone has hobbled the police service, it is the government. There are several police officers in this country, in this service, who are in a state of discontent. Not discontent with the people of Barbados, but discontent with the government. And so that is why I said the Attorney General, the learned Attorney General, must now be seen as tilting at windmills in creating this argument about people hobbling a police force, a police service, when the evidence reveals that it is the government that is hobbling the police service. I repeat that I thought I was coming here today to hear that the government was promoting constables of 20 years or more to the status, to the rank of senior constable, and increasing their salaries. They were told this, I repeat, for emphasis, they were told this last year, March, on the occasion of the St. James North by-election. And the pun is intended when I say by, in relation to the election. They were promised promotion again, and they were promised that they would have been promoted in May and June and July and August. And I honestly felt that our convergence here today was to formalize the promotion of those gentlemen and ladies who are in the police service. I thought that we were coming here to do that. The promise to them continues to be breached. Who then, Your Honor, is hobbling the police service? I may have made a decision to ignore the comment about the National Advisory, something the government set up